and then I got really into video games. And building out video games. And one thing I learned was the importance of narrative and story across the globe, and being able to communicate vision through storytelling, which the crypto world and the video game world kind of live hand in hand in a sense, especially now with us diving into the metaverse. And so it was an easy transition over to Safemoon when Safemoon kicked off in March of last year.
When you're working there and you don't see blatant fraud, they're under NDAs. They know that if they break those, John will take them to court. They know he has the money to take them to court. He's taking his mom to court.
I don't want to insinuate other people are culpable or should be, pursued by the government or anything like that. But I would say there is a different level of responsibility, I think, from the earlier team where, for instance, me personally, if I was there from that beginning, when I even saw those kinds of shenanigans going on, and even if you don't directly know that early on, because you see exactly what's happening when it's happening, and you can make those educated guesses that are like, you're 90% sure. So, when it comes to some of those early employees, I think they knew, but they couldn't maybe prove. And there is no personal incentive for them to spill the beans because, to be honest, they got big payouts and benefited heavily from it. So to them,
real fast. Yeah. Well, what's going to happen if you start telling Safemoon that their dreams aren't going to come true? You're going to get canceled by an entire army of people that are going to slander you and lie about you. Like, what's the benefit, right?
Yeah, no, that was also a lot of it for a lot of people. I mean, there was a couple people from the gaming team that had, they got fired and they have plenty of negative things to say. And there was a fear, and actually one of them did say some stuff and an NDA or like a cease and desist got sent to them. So, and he was very mad about that. And I think that was from Josh Chilcutt or whatever. He had sent a cease and desist to him. So like there was a lot of threats also of suing people. John has no problem suing people, especially when he was in a position where he has a lot of money and can afford the lawyers. He doesn't give a rip. So, those things really led to a lot of people not being as vocal as they could have.
Yeah, I think John was really smart in some ways and really stupid in others. I don't think it's just across the board complete jackass, because he had everybody fooled. And there was a lot of really smart people that were fooled in the army. And it could be that was what was going on behind the scenes, is that, maybe he was being very smart and making decisions. And it could be that he is more of a storyteller, and that's what his confidence is not in his ability to get anything done, but in his ability to convince people that he's the real deal. I look back and I'm embarrassed on like I said, I'm embarrassed about what I fell for. And I didn't fall for nearly as much as a lot of people. I very early on would cover negative things that I knew would impact people's things. So I can't imagine talking about John being the next Elon Musk visionary and then having to take that L at this point. I mean, the mass embarrassment. I think we do see an exodus of people. I think Danology and other people are just deleting their accounts and disappearing. So major respect to that guy that came up earlier and said, "Hey, I was in your YouTube and I was talking trash to you," and he owned up to it. I'm not even going to hold it against you. I don't care. But just major respect for at least doing that, because that's another point I said, is that all your reputation's been ruined. Who's going to trust you guys that fell for it every step of the way, and on top of that slandered everybody who was telling you the truth the entire time? And I know that's kind of a side rant that I keep going to, but I think the main thing when you're ex-Safemoon employee, you're hoping to get some kind of juicy, I heard John in the break room talking about how he hates the Safemoon employees. But what I see, and why I was saying he's smart, is I think that he hid his true motives from everybody. He hid what actually happened with the LP from almost everybody. The fact that Ryan didn't know, and he presented itself as if he was trying to run a legitimate business, even if he was just pretending. And then I think all the people that are working for him actually believed it, and then they tried to go and achieve these missions, and then they found that they were being the success of which you probably find this with every freaking job for some reason, but the success of doing what they're supposed to do with whatever the utility might have been they're working on was being hindered by the one person in charge. And that leads me to the last question that I kind of want to ask. And I get that you said that the exchange was done over a year ago, but what was their reasoning for not releasing it?
there was no reason that I ever heard given. It was just sitting and waiting, which was everything. There was NFTs done too. I saw the final iterations. There was graphic designers working on it, and there's 3D models. And we were going to tie them into our mini MMO game that we were making in Unreal Engine, and just a lot of that also was, again, like Mr. Adult was involved in a lot. Was the Mr. Adult was the go between in a lot of that, and I feel like he's a big fluff ball of nothing. Like he's worse than John in the sense of like he just talks and talks, and 0% of anything ever happens. So I think I don't really know. Maybe he was trying to elongate his job because, like, I have. It's really bizarre. I don't have answers for that. That's the mind-boggling thing for internally as an employee, is working on stuff and seeing stuff, and then somehow magically, it never crosses that final finish line, and you're like, hey, and like I said, I sent email after email, like, hey, can we get to this end goal on this? Hey, can we do this? And there was just nothing. Like, oh, we'll meet about it next week, and then no one shows up for the meeting, or oh, well, you know what, let's talk about that. How about redirect you, like, what about this thing over here? And it's like, well, wait, hold on, there's no reason to talk about these other things. Here's this product, here's the finish line, are we finishing it, yes or no? And it just was nothing ever happened. It was just evaporated in the air. It was very bizarre.
No, I think there's multiple components that go into why that is, but I think possibly the biggest reason why that was the case, in my opinion, is that he already got the money. They already made it, like Thomas's leaked text that says we effing did it after no one noticed that we sold. And John already got his millions out of Bitmart before anybody knew what was going on. He already was sending his wallet millions of Tether. Like, he succeeded. What incentive does he really have to make Safemoon succeed or to put out any utilities other than wanting to keep up the facade? And I think that there was probably some weird psychological thing, because like when you have that money, you're good for life. I mean, that kind of money is insane. What he was living the dream that everybody wanted, and beyond. Like, that kind of money is just crazy. But I think that wasn't enough for him. I think that we all also played a responsible role in building him up as something that he wasn't. We looked up to him as this great visionary. He's going to lead us into the next, mooning of the price. And I think that he enjoyed that as well. So he didn't want to lose that. And the only way to keep that was to keep the story ongoing. And so that's probably huge motivators and why it resulted in promising these big things, getting the glory of being this mastermind while being rich, and then putting in the least amount of effort, and probably not wanting to release the products. Like, I don't know, you said, I would think that he didn't want to release the products because people would realize that they're not good and that their dreams aren't going to come true, and that he would probably lose his ability to keep convincing them of telling stories. But you had said that you had thought that it was because they potentially wouldn't be able to maintain the exchange or something if they released it. Was that because of funds or because of the team or something?
So actually, you bring up a good point. So both of those things, I think, are simultaneously true. So one thing is, which I kind of alluded to earlier, it felt like a lot of times John is using the company and ideas and these goals and aspirations to have fun, not to actually build a company, but it was fun for him to talk about things. As it is for most people, it's fun to have ideas, but it's no fun to actually like do the hard work to build it. And he has no incentive because he's already made a ton of money. And then the second part of tie into that is when these products, when we're talking about an exchange, when we're talking about an MMO, when we're talking about having NFT release and more money coming in from different places, we're talking about a lot of complication. You have to hire more people. You have to manage better. You have to have infrastructure that is built to last. You have to think about complex problems moving into the future. And that's a lot of work that I don't think him and people like Mr. Adult and other people want to do. They don't actually want to deal with those long-term real work company building effects. They just want to get paid and keep doing a bunch of nothing and just talk about doing stuff. And that was the kind of circle of what it felt like was happening. Um, and and yeah, I think also there could be a component of when you have to hire a lot more employees, like if an exchange releases, if a game releases, you have to hire a lot more employees to keep up the accountability and infrastructure and safety, and servers and all this different stuff. And that means more money. You're paying more money out of the company. And it could very well be that if there's money being siphoned from inside the company, why do we want to spend more money? We want to make money. We don't want to spend money. So if we can keep, it's like from John's point of view, if we can keep siphoning off of the army, we make money. If we start actually building real stuff, we start potentially losing money. And another thing that you said, and then I'll finish my rant here. Um, I agree. I personally, I'll just say this: if the Safemoon card would have released, if the exchange would have released, those two things for sure, the NFTs would have released. Those things I don't think actually would do very much at all. There are tons, by the time those things would have released, there are 1,000 other cryptocurrencies that have released better versions of all of those things. And the only thing that they can serve is not to actually like better the crypto environment. It would have just been ways to take money from the Safemoon army if they're using money and buying stuff and whatever. But like fees on that card to try and use the card and the logistics and all this different stuff, there's other better ways of doing these things that already exist. So I don't think those products would have actually I think they wouldn't have been very impressive. I think there would have been hype on initial release, and then it would have flopped because there's other better comparative things in the market. And the only people who would have been buying and using those things would have been Safemoon Army diehard people. And so I think that there is a component of, like you said, fear of release these and then the hype's gone, because once a couple months pass and these things die down and people realize that these are just, it's like releasing the wallet was cool, but there's 1,000 wallets. And some people might like the Safemoon wallet better, but the Safemoon wallet isn't like significantly changing the game in any way. There's a million wallets out there. So I think it would have been the same with some of these other products. So I think that is also a component.
You know what I don't get, guys? Okay. When John said the liquidity doesn't own, the owners does not own their money, it's not theirs. Now listen, what more big red flag did people need to hear? In other words, it's my money. Fuck all of yous. Yous don't own the holders don't own the liquidity. Beyond all these promises never came true. All this junk, all this garbage. But yet, when someone out there tried to say, beware, be careful, it's a scam, people, innocent people that was telling their minds were getting fucked from everybody. Oh no, you don't know what you're talking about. Safemoon is going to go to the moon. You're a paid fodder. You're this, you're that. Do you understand what I'm saying, guys? And listen, there was people out there trying to warn and warn and warn, but the Safe Moon crowd, mister, we couldn't fucking speak. We couldn't say nothing. We was getting shut the fuck down from everywhere. Okay, it's not fair, guys. Now listen, it is what it is. Everybody was warned over and over and over again. Deep down inside, you all knew what was going on. Each and every one of you guys, but you held the fucking faith and you held a Safe Moon flag. Now listen, it's over. It happened. It's done. Let that son of a bitch pay for what he did. I hope he never gets out. He hurt a lot of people. He destroyed a lot of people. He broke a lot of homes, a lot of marriages. People lost their homes, their cars, their life for this fucking piece of shit. Safe Moon shit.
Yeah, and I'll say another thing. For me personally, I actually have tried. I've been trying to get different jobs, and SafeMoon on my resume does not help me in any way. Like, what I'm saying, like it's a negative blot where, to me, it's like, fuck, I should have never sold my project to SafeMoon. I should have just kept working the remaining 6 months I had left, fucking released it and done my own thing. Like, this whole journey was great for some areas of personal growth or some understanding of like inner working of, but whether negative or positive in certain environments, meeting people, certain people has been great. But like, I think nobody has escaped the negative outcomes of Safemoon. The lucky few who made money early on, they're the only ones. Everybody has had their time wasted. Everybody has had their, like, psychologically has invested a lot in this in one way or the other, whether they're outside or inside. And there's ramifications, and it blows for everybody.
Because you were there during the time that CoffeeZilla put that out. How did that affect the environment and the workplace, with knowing that such a famous YouTuber was now accusing your boss of fraud?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll put this out there, and I don't mean to blow up his spot or anything, but before before I exited, I messaged, when it became really apparent, when it was like, okay, I think this is pretty obvious at this point. I messaged Jake Hammock and said, "Hey man, like, yeah, I'm glad that I get to work on this stuff here. I'm sure you're excited about working on whatever you're working on, but like, this seems kind of apparent that this happened, and you're like at the top, sitting right next to him, getting deeper involved in this company. Like, this is a problem." And his response to me was like, "Oh, I understand your worries basically, but I just have a different perspective." And I was like, I don't know what that means. What different perspective is there to have? Like, sure, maybe you can't prove something, but like, why are, like, essentially kind of like bouncing back to him, like, why are we kind of here doing this? You know what I mean? And actually, one of my team members had just quit um, because of that. He was like, you know what? I don't think I should work here for this reason. He was a dev working on the gaming project. He quit, and so yeah, that was like a week before I left. And But yeah, I think here's just the truth. I think everyone wants, like what you're saying, some sort of juicy inside of like John doing some massive misappropriation or negligible thing. I think the truth is, for all, except maybe for that core group of original employees, I think everyone who worked at SafeMoon no one has any stories like that, unfortunately. I think, and I don't think it's because John's like super smart, like what you're saying, like maybe he was smart in crafting these ways. I think it was just really, at a certain point early on, once the money had already been taken, he buttoned up the hatches and was like, I'm just never going to mention it. I'm never going to talk about it. He'll spend his money and do whatever he's going to do. But he has no reason to ever let anyone know that anything illegal happened. His incentive is keep that to himself and to
That's real
just act like
quickly.
everything's normal. And so I think that's what he did. And no one really saw anything, unfortunately, is what I would assume. I don't know, but that's what I would assume.
That's what I'm wondering. Like, if I worked there, I'd be like, because it took me way too long to be like, wait, where did SafeMoon get their money? It took way too long for me to I started asking that a couple months before CoffeeZilla released this video, and I was like, oh shoot. But I always wondered, like, what was his response when his employers would ask him, where did we get all our money in the beginning? Like, what's funding all this? Would it just be like, it's confidential, don't ask those questions, you're fired? Like, I was just like, because surely other people that work there, because I know Ryan said that he was trying to figure out what the runway was, which was how much money do they have to, to work off of, and he needed those revenue models. And he said that John wouldn't give him access to it. So I just don't know what his excuse was for not explaining where they initially got all their money to his own employees.
I think early on that was kind of waved off as being through the tax they get these funds. But then again, I went back to the white paper and couldn't find anything. And just like Zuby had mentioned in the previous interview I'd done with him, that's something they added on later to the website as sort of like an excuse as to where they got this money or how they were getting it. But you could never prove that on a blockchain level.
The answers that were basically given was, it wasn't actually like direct answers. It was more like, oh, well, different tokens were sold off. Oh, there's a tax. There's a fee. And I think actually there was like a couple week period internally. I remember employees talking about, once it transitioned, it wasn't really a question of, okay, was money being taken before, it was really like, under what pretense was that money being taken? And the kind of thing that was being tossed around was, oh, well, it was always a tax, and there was like nothing illegal about it. But there's no like, this is the other problem with not having rules around crypto. I'm not for government encroachment on crypto by any means, but I do think that there needs to be some level of under understandable law around what you can and can't do, because there was this weird thing where it's like, okay, well, if you take money before and then you say that it was because of the tax you have now, does that does that count, or was it because you didn't state it previously? Like that makes that portion illegal, and there was all of this kind of like confusion around it. And then I think after a couple weeks, everyone's like, well, nobody knows, and then you just move on and you do your job. And yeah, it's a weird thing. It's a confusing matter, and that's why I think the government has to sort like this. The SEC and DOJ need to sort this out, and I think that there needs to be some sensible laws so this type of confusion and weirdness and kind of like obfuscating accountability and what's happening, what's not happening, what's legal, what's not legal needs to get figured out, so it prevents this kind of bullshit in the future.
Thank you. Zuby, I'd like to say first and foremost, I personally don't hold you responsible for what went down in Safemoon. I understand that you was an employee and you was doing your part, and that part is what it is. But my question to you is about Jack Hammond. I've been hearing a lot about this guy's name. Like he's this great person for Safemoon and he was going to do all these great things. I mean, he was right next to John. He became his right hand at some point. Are we expected to believe that he himself didn't see all the red flags and wasn't down with the bullshit himself?
I think just like everyone else, he had no access to funds or understanding of what happened with funds. That's also why right now one of the issues is no one can access SafeMoon funds because everything was through John. Everything was through John. He did not allow that to get outside of his hands because potentially, we can theorize it. People would figure out what was going on and then have proof. And so I think that my interactions with Jake Hammock, I can't vouch or not vouch for anyone. All I can say is what my interactions and what my opinions are.
Well,
I had a
Zuby,
lot of
people did have information. They had the ledger and they were able to find information.
Oh, well, I mean, sure.
Where the money was going and all that. And he is an expert. You would think that guy Hammock was an expert compared to most of us.
Right. So you might be right. Maybe maybe he was able to see some of those things and felt like he knew for sure and then did nothing about it. I don't know. I just mean internal SafeMoon funds and accounts. I don't think he had access to those, but externally there might have been evidence that he was aware of. You're absolutely right. And it did seem like from my interaction with him that on that one occurrence, he probably knew but just didn't care and kept going because whatever his personal reasons were. I don't know. He got to work on something he was excited about, or he felt good. He felt it was a good opportunity for him, or he felt like he could. I don't really know. We can speculate, but I will say on a personal level, I had very positive interactions with him. He seemed like a really nice guy, a really straightforward guy. He seemed honest to me. And I do remember feeling like, damn, if we could, this was like right before I left. There was a thought that went through my head, and I communicated with some other people and was like, if John could just leave as CEO and maybe Jake was put in as CEO, things would go better. But again, that question of like knowledge of illegal activity, what are his motives, that, there could have been some negative stuff there. I don't know.
Anybody can come up if you guys want. I honestly just started this because I was bored and I'm like, I want to talk about this. I know a lot of people are like, stop talking about that. Dude, why do you care what I talk about? I can talk about the grass. Why do you not want me to talk about it? There's got to be some kind of incentive inside of you that doesn't want me to do that. Whether it's.
I have a question.
Crypto, I got a question for you, Crypto. Who was the first one to expose the gate wallet?
To divulge this information, but how were you paid? Was it SafeMoon? Was it CAT? I mean, USD?
No, I never got paid in crypto. I mean, I got paid via, deposits to my bank account via W-2, paid taxes on it. Like, the setup internally for paying W-2 employees was just the same you would see at every other company. So I'm not sure how other people got paid who weren't W-2 employees, like contractors, but yeah, that's how I got paid.
What were you saying about the Gabe wallet?
Yeah, who was the one that first noticed the Gabe wallet?
Dude, I was thinking about this as you're saying everything, that John thinks he's just good to go. In the background, and I try to give credit, but I don't have a huge platform. People only follow me for Safemoon. In the background, Bootsy and Strider and a group of people in the Discord called Crypto Cynics were all just sitting there researching and studying and going out and asking questions. And he thinks he's good, and he did. It kind of was good. It was kind of like hard. It wasn't easily. I mean, it actually was once you found it, but it was kind of hard to tell. And I'm pretty sure that it was Strider and Bootsy that had found that and had been digging and connected the Gabe wallet and the Devil wallet to his bank account, to Bitmart, and seeing what they did with the funds from the version 1 pancake swap to the version 2. I think they're the real heroes, in my opinion, of Safemoon. If they hadn't have done that, John would probably still be doing whatever he wants today, lying to everybody, living the dream, and putting out crappy products, or not putting out his crappy products.